Antoine Rogers with another episode of Out and Up, and we have another awesome guest with us. Like you know how we do every show. We're gonna go ahead and let our guest this week introduce himself.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Rogers. My name is Antonio Gerald. I'm a local attorney here in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. And we're just gonna go ahead and get into the questions. Mr. Gerald, let's jump into sports first. What's your connection to sports growing up?
As a young kid, I tried pretty much every sport, I guess. Dipped and dabbed in football, basketball, pretty much everything. Baseball, ran a little track here, and then by little, I may have done a rec season here, a rec season there, and just kind of dipped and dabbed all around until I kind of found my niche.
Let's back up a little bit. Mr. Gerald, where you originally born and raised?
Originally, I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina. I was born here. I was raised here for the majority of the time. I lived in Louisville, Kentucky for a few years in my teenage years, but I was born in Fayetteville, graduated high school in Fayetteville.
Okay, all right. And so I'm also in the Fayetteville area. What high school did you end up going to?
I went to Eastern High School when I lived in Louisville, and I graduated from Westover High School here in Fayetteville.
Okay, so what was the sport? Just to kind of talk a little bit about what sport you really locked into. What was the sport you pretty much locked into throughout your high school years?
Wrestling was my sport.
Okay, all right. And how many years?
Football as well. I played football. I boxed actually in high school as well too, but wrestling was my sport.
All right. And what were some of your highlights in wrestling throughout high school?
I had a few. Obviously, my biggest highlight was winning the state championship, the 4A state championship, my senior year. I felt I should have been a two-time state champ, but I got injured my junior year. I was undefeated going into the state meet my junior year and got injured. So I in state my senior year.
Wow. Okay. So what was your mindset after going undefeated? Your record would have been, what was your record your junior year?
My junior year, 40 something, 43, maybe 42. It's been a long time. It was 40 some odd matches though. I hadn't lost. I lost in the semifinals of the state tournament. I dislocated my knee in the semifinals my junior year.
Wow. So now for most kids, they have a hard time with kind of overcoming adversity. And so many would see that kind of as an adversity, in that you went undefeated. For one, that's going to be difficult to do, to go your entire junior season. You go undefeated. You don't get to participate in the states, the postseason tournament, to really show those across the state how good you are. And then you enter your senior year. What was your mindset going into your senior year after, doing what you did your junior year? Did you feel the pressure of having to do the same thing?
Well, let me back you up just a little bit. I actually went to state my junior year. That's where I got injured, in the meet. I was in the semifinals.
Okay.
So and to be honest, as an adult and looking back on it now, I would have thought that I would have been more depressed, maybe, or maybe in my feelings in some way, but I don't remember that. It happened. I knew I was the best, at least in my mind, and but I don't remember dwelling on it. It was just, I'm winning state next year, and I just looked at that. So I don't really remember dwelling on it, or the injury took me out. it happened, and I just don't remember dwelling on it though. Teenage. Ready for school to get out and for the summer to start. So.
Gotcha. So you get into your senior year, the season start. Now, were you able to repeat the undefeated record again your senior year?
I was not. I actually lost once my senior year prior to state, and it may have been the best thing that happened. I actually got pinned. I was wrestling, can't remember, another great wrestler from somewhere in North Carolina. He was really good. And I was actually up. I was winning 8-5 or something like that. Probably got cocky, and he caught me in a roll and pinned me. And that was actually good because it reset me and it put a hunger back in me.
Gotcha. And it probably, for many, probably would say and agree with you, because you got to figure, to go undefeated, pretty much probably an injury stopped you from winning the states your junior year, but you get into your senior year, and to have that loss probably, like you said, just gave you a moment to kind of reset, refocus, and really get back, zoned in on what your goal was as far as winning state. So that's awesome to hear that. Some kids feel like, we see kids that happen where they may have a good junior year, good sophomore year, and then you get into that next season, you suffer that loss. And for some of them, they take it as a failure and they never come back from it. But for you, I think it speaks, and it's a good story even for young student athletes to know that sometimes we can utilize those losses to really give us an opportunity to really zone in, focus on what our ultimate goal is, so that we could ultimately reach where we're trying to get to. So I think that's a good story that speaks to that. And so you get into your senior year, you get the loss. You were able to pretty much win every regular season match from that point on?
Yes. From that point on, and from the, prior to that, I hadn't lost. And so it was certainly a learning example. I do remember the coach, my coach Vickers, actually using me as an example at practice, like any of us lose. I was the example that week at practice. So it's certainly fire under me. It certainly. And I went on and I won the rest of the matches, going at one districts, was regional champ, and then was excited going into the state championship. It was in Charlotte that year.
Cool. And so I don't know if you mind touching on this. I know we talked a little bit, and I thought this was an awesome part to throw in there because there was an award, and I believe the award, and you can correct me, was given out prior to you going to the States. There was an award that was given out that very easily you possibly could have won, but you didn't win. What was that award that's given out?
Regionals. Actually, my teammate, who was very, very good wrestler, state runner-up, and we would battle at practice. Tommy Tillman was his name. He was regional wrestler of the year. I think it would have been either one of us. He won. Certainly was happy for him, but certainly I wanted to win that as well. And that was some fire. That put a fire under me as well.
Right.
But he was certainly deserving. But as an athlete, you're a dog, and you certainly want to put yourself in a position to win when you can. But we pushed each other. We were one weight. He was 160. I was 171.
Wow. So again, I liked it, and I wanted to just throw that in there because these are all the things I know with young people. Sometimes we have these ultimate goals, and when we don't get the things we want, sometimes we can allow them to kind of pull us down. And yes. So again, you named now a second situation where there was an award, and the good thing was it was a teammate that won. But yes, there was an award that I'm sure many young people that have put in to wrestling as much as you have put in would have liked to won, but you allowed it again to give you that fuel as you go into states. So how did the states turn out that year, your senior year?
States turned out well. I ended up winning, and it was, it was a culmination of, your whole high school, all the work. I always thought I could win, but prior to winning it, it seemed like, almost like a dream, like it was something that may have been out of reach. And what it was a culmination of all the hard work, and it certainly validated all the hard work, all the summer work, all the running, and it validated a lot. And so to this day, it's certainly one of my proudest accomplishments. Certainly, up there with your kids and family. It's right there. It's right under there. So
that's awesome.
It's been a long time ago, but it's still, I think about it. Still think about it.
That's awesome. And so you're going to win the states, and then with wrestling from the states, you go where? After you win the state championship, what's then the tournament that comes after that?
Well, they have an invitational after that. They had nationals, high school nationals, and I ended up going to high school nationals. That year it was in Pittsburgh. My coach Vickers, took us up there. And so you had all the state champs from North Carolina. I believe state champs and runner-ups could go. And so it was in Pittsburgh at Duquesne University. And so we went up there. It was a little while after our state. I think maybe it was a month after. So wasn't in the best shape. Hadn't been practicing like I had for state, but went up there and we competed in Pittsburgh.
All right. And so just to kind of wrap up wrestling, how did you end up doing in the nationals? Because now you're wrestling not just against the best in North Carolina, you're wrestling against the best in the country. So how did things turn out for you in the nationals?
It didn't turn out the way I wanted. I wanted to become an All-American, but I think I did well. My first match was against California state champ, and initially I was probably had some jitters. You know, California, big state, and this guy, and so he jumped out on me. He was beating me initially early on, and what gave me motivation, my teammate was with me, Tommy, and the other North Carolina state champs. And I remember looking up at them. I was losing, and they were yelling. You know, I'm getting into what they were saying. I can't remember, but basically, you know, you're not gonna let them do you like that. And I essentially ended up coming back. I beat the California state champ, and then I had another match against Washington State. Beat Washington. Then I wrestled Utah. I believe that would have been my All-American match if had I won that one to put me in the All-American bracket. Lost to Utah in overtime. Came back, wrestled North Dakota. I beat North Dakota by 1 point. And then I ended up losing to Florida by 1 point. So I did pretty good. I went 3-2 at nationals and had one overtime loss and a 1 point loss. So I felt it let me know I'd been doing something right.
Right. And even you kind of talked about it, that looking back, there was a possibility you could have maybe even put more into preparing for the nationals. So when you look at the fact that out of the 5 people you fought in the nationals, the best in the country, you went 3-2. And when you know that, hey, you know what? If I had prepared a little better, I may have been able to compete a little bit more.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. I didn't prepare the way I should have, and I didn't realize the gravity of it, because once again, the season's over. You're high school kid, you're back with your friends, you're having fun, and you know, I'll be at the tournament in a month. Just kind of winged it.
Cool. And so here we go. We're talking about wrestling. Actually, Mr. Gerald would be, you know, first season we had a coach who had also wrestled, but Mr. Gerald again is another person we have on as a guest. And we're addressing, you know, wrestling. So wrestling isn't typically all the time, you know, for some, they're moving on into college and they'll wrestle on that level. They may even go on to wrestle, you know, in college, or, you know, those that even wrestle internationally and wrestle in the Olympics. But it's not like your main sports like baseball, basketball, football, where people are looking to say, hey, I want to be a pro. And those that know, you know, amateur wrestling, know high school and college wrestling, you don't leave from wrestling and go straight to the WWE or anything like that. It's not that kind of setup. So in saying that, Mr. Gerald, now high school is pretty much over. Did you have a focus on what you wanted to do post high school?
I didn't, honestly. I didn't. I had a couple of opportunities. I had some opportunities to wrestle on the next level. But back then they had this thing called Prop 48, I think is what it was called. So if you didn't have your academics all the way up to par, then I think the D1 level, you couldn't go to. You had to do JUCO, you had to do D3. And I had quite a few of those opportunities. But they were so far away, California, the Northeast, Maine, you know, all up and down the Northeast. And they were just so far away. And at that time, being a high school kid, I didn't want to go to California and leave North Carolina or go to Maine or New Hampshire or nowhere up there. So I did not end up going on to wrestle in college. And after that, I found myself moving into bodybuilding. I transitioned and I was an amateur bodybuilder for a while after that and started competing in bodybuilding and things like that.
Okay, all right. So you did a little bit of bodybuilding, sorry. And just from the physical standpoint, was there anything else from the sports standpoint you did? Then you do some training and also a little bit?
Yeah. But that was more, you know, while in college, I was a personal trainer. You know, I was a trainer. And so that was right up my alley, because coming out of high school, you know, you're used to your physical, you're practicing, you're lifting weights, you're working out so long over all of those years. And it was just a good transition because it was something I was into. I enjoyed working out. And it was just a natural transition. And so one day, I'm working odd jobs, but I'm working out still. I'm seeing these personal trainers in the gym and I'm thinking, man, I can be a personal trainer. So I started taking the classes and got certified. And then I became a personal trainer. And that's kind of how I fell into that because I was always in the gym anyway. I said, I might as well get paid for being in the gym. So I became a personal trainer.
Cool. And so Mr. Gerald's story, I think, is awesome. And I think it is needed for so many of our young people that give their all in sports. And we have some athletes that may play 2 and 3 sports. And then, because things may not work out from the, classroom in, or they may not have it planned out what they want to do post high school. If they don't go on and don't get recruited like that to go on and play in college, if you don't have a plan, sometimes you may not know what to do. And for so many young athletes, you go into the workforce and then that becomes life because you feel like there's really no coming back from that. And sometimes you just work job after job. And so before we get into what you're doing now, Mr. Gerald, and you touched on it a little bit, but what did you do right after high school? Like I said, I know you said eventually you went to college, but what was the time span between getting out of high school and then going before you went to college?
Right. So it was probably a couple of years. I did odd jobs. I can probably had, 20, 30 jobs. I've done everything, moved furniture, I worked in factories, you name it, print shops, and just wherever I could get a job. And it was busting my butt. And so, but I'm working out at the time. So I would say probably about 20, I decided to get back in school. I started going part-time when I was 20 years old. 21, I said, let me go ahead and just go full-time and try to finish this up. And in the meantime, I started taking criminal justice classes. And so it really interested me. And I kind of stayed on that path. But I would say it was about 2 years. I took a 2-year break before I got back in school.
Wow. And so again, I love to tell these stories because again, too often our kids start working and then you start your life, get married, or some, may begin to have kids. And then you just feel like this is it. This is life for the next, 20, 30, 40 years, and I have no hope of doing anything or even bettering myself. And you just get comfortable where you're at.
That is true.
And so I think your story is so awesome in that I met you as an attorney. You were already an attorney when I met you. But just to hear the story that there was actually a space, because so many kids don't go right to college. And then they kind of get into that rut. Well, I'm here. There's no coming back from this. But your 2 or 3 year break, you end up going to college, and decide to take criminal justice. At what point did you decide that you wanted to be an attorney?
Well, I was interested in the law, so I watch court TV. I still watch it. I think it's called True TV now, but that's all I would watch. And so I wouldn't say the thought never got in my head to be an attorney until I started meeting attorneys.
Okay.
But I think it's something I probably always wanted to do. I just didn't know any attorneys. I didn't even really know how you became an attorney, but I was a personal trainer. So I started meeting attorneys in the gym. I would train attorneys. Some attorneys were my clients. And so I'm just meeting a wide array of people. That's one thing about the gym. It's like a microcosm of society. So you have all different walks of life. And you'll meet a wide array of people. And I'd met some attorneys, and one in particular, who's still a mentor of mine. And I didn't know he was an attorney. He was just somebody in the gym I would help out and train him. And I actually found out he was an attorney inadvertently. He was checking in the gym one day. I saw his card in his wallet. I was like, "Oh, you're a lawyer?" And he said he was. And I told him, "Oh, man, that's cool. I thought about that." And he pulled my coattail and, "Look, you want to be a lawyer, you're going to be a lawyer. This is what you need to do. You need anything, let me know." And from there, it was just in my head, because I knew him and I knew our backgrounds were similar. He actually played football, but he actually played pro for a little bit, played for the Lions for a couple of years.
Okay.
So same type backgrounds, came up the same way. And so to see him, it was like, oh, wow, it was an eye opener. Like, man, I can be an attorney. Okay, well, this is what I need to do. And so I set my mind to it. And I think the bodybuilding, I put so many years in that because I was competing at that time, and it takes a tremendous amount of discipline. And so I just translated that into now my focus is going to be becoming an attorney. And from kind of that moment, I'll say probably about 23 is when it kind of clicked, like, okay, I'm gonna be a lawyer. And that's when I started focusing on being a lawyer. But I think the friends that I met in the gym, because probably if it wasn't for me working in the health club, I'm not sure I would have been an attorney, to be honest. But once I started meeting people who were lawyers and they told me how, oh, you can be a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. Look, this is what you need to do. That was it. I put my mind to it. And then, and it's something, and then I realized it is something I wanted to do and I love it. And it's right up my alley.
Good. So speak to the young person watching, and I heard you refer to how your mentor came from the same background. So some of our young people, depending on where they're from, may have this mindset that they have this perfect picture that you got to come from the perfect school, have the perfect grades, come from the perfect neighborhood. Like, just speak to it as far as from the encouraging standpoint for that young person and letting them know, what is it that it takes to be an attorney? So they won't have the mindset, well, this is my household, so I could never be an attorney. Speak to them.
Well, no, that's certainly not the case. But first, you got to go to college. You got to get through college. And like I said, and the first couple of years with college were like high school. I did all right, but I didn't do as well as I could have. I was just kind of getting through. I was working at the time also, so I worked my way through college. So I'm working. But once I realized, okay, I want to be an attorney, light bulb went off. I need to buckle down on these books. I need to be focused. So my last 2 years of college, or probably last year and a half, I got really focused because that's when I knew I wanted to try to get into law school. But what I will tell you, and what surprised me, is that in law school, I did better than I had done from kindergarten. Like it was easy to me, it came really, really easy. And it was just a surprise. I mean, how well I did. And so, Dean's List, all of that. And so I'd never done that in college or high school or anything. So, but when I got to law school, I found it to be easy. But it took a lot of work. It was more so the same thing. It takes the same attributes it takes to be a good athlete. It takes to get through law school to be a good law student. Now, there's a difference when you're becoming an attorney, but to be a good law student takes discipline, and it takes a lot of work. And it's the same thing that it takes to be a good athlete. And you got to put time in. It's outside of class. It's not just going to class. You're putting 8 hours in at home. And it's the same way with sports. You're not just practicing with your team. You need to be lifting, doing things on your own to make yourself elite. And it was those same attributes. And so I just applied that to the law school, and used that same discipline that I would have used in athletics.
Okay. All right. Good. So in law school, just for those that may not know, as far as, from bachelor's to master's, like what are the years that it take that a young person will have to plan to put in to becoming an attorney? Like what are the steps as far as years needed in schooling?
Correct. Well, once you're done with college, you're looking at 3 to 4 years, depending on if you go full-time or part-time. For me, it was 2 years, 11 months. And I know because I was ready to go. I graduated in 2 years and 11 months, but 3 years is what you're looking at.
Okay.
And then after that, before you're an attorney, you got to pass the bar. And so that's the big hurdle. And I was blessed to pass on the first try, and the rest is history after that. But if you do what you're supposed to do in law school, it'll all transition. Now, prior to going to law school, you have to take an exam called the LSAT. And so it's the law school admissions test. And that's what they use to admit students, that along with your GPA and extracurriculars and other things like that. So, but that's the big test though.
All right. So now you've been an attorney, how many years?
March will be 13 years.
March, 13 years. Wow, that's awesome. So just speak to us. I don't think we really went into it just college-wise, or the schools that you attended between, college prior to law school, and then where did you go to school for law?
I went undergrad. I went to Indiana University, the Indianapolis campus. I was a commuter, so I moved to Indianapolis when I was 21. 21. And so I went there for law school. I went to Michigan State in East Lansing, Michigan.
Awesome.
And I
Awesome.
did go straight to law school after college. So there was a couple of year gap in between there as well. It's about 2-3 years. And because I started law school at 28, I believe I graduated college. I think I was 25.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So on this end, what would you advise the young person that wants to be an attorney? Is it good to take a break, or would you say, hey, it's best to jump right into it? What would you advise today?
I would say, generally, if I was speaking to my kids, I'm going to say go straight through. However, there were a lot of people in law school with me who had other professions. There were teachers, there were police officers, there were, I had a classmate that worked for IBM. There were, so people at different points in their life may decide to go back and may believe a law degree is helpful for their career. Now, probably half or 60% of the students were straight from college, but it was a good number that had worked other careers or raised families or what have you, and then decided to go to law school. So I think it's pretty much whenever you are at a point in your life when you're able to give that commitment, because it's a commitment, and it's going to take your time. It's nothing to play with. Certainly doable. Wouldn't even say it's particularly difficult, but it's time consuming.
So for the ones that don't know, I know some people may know, some may not know. Just give those watching, what are the different types of law that you can get into? Because I know every attorney that doesn't represent for the same thing. I know different attorneys that represent for different things. What are some of the different types of law people can represent people on?
Once you graduate, you can practice any type of law. You certainly want to be competent. We all learn the same the first 2 years. Your third year, you may take some electives, maybe in areas that you may be interested in. But everybody's going to learn the same thing because the bar exam is the same, whether you're going to be a business or an estate attorney. You have attorneys that do wills. You have criminal lawyers. You have some attorneys that do a little bit of everything. Myself, I'm primarily criminal and personal injury. So we do criminal, car accidents, and our traffic matters. We do serious criminal though. So, but you can go into any area and you can switch areas. You don't have to stay in one particular area, although you may find yourself doing that because that's where your experience is at. But I think when you get to law school, you take some electives that may interest you, and you'll kind of find the area that you may want to practice in once you graduate. And for me, it was easy. I knew I wanted to be a criminal lawyer, so it's always been the same. So I'm living a dream right now. So,
Gotcha. So now being in law for, you said 13 years, correct?
Yeah, March would be 13 years I've been
13
licensed.
years. Just what have been some things to really just like, I don't know, it's not the same as sports, but just like, what have you been able to learn just about people in themselves? Just some of your highlights of being an attorney and how you've been able to impact people's lives and things that have really just caused you to really lock into what you do.
The best part is helping people and being able to see someone that you helped years ago and you see them now, which happens to me periodically, and they're doing well in life. They got a family now. Excuse me. Okay. Yeah. Family now. They're working, they're productive citizens. So when you're able to, when I see people that I've helped in the past that are doing well with themselves, it's certainly a good feeling. I enjoy helping people. And so, this is the field for that. You can't be judgmental in this field, but, people are more than their worst mistake. And I believe that, and especially as a criminal attorney, but I've represented many people who have went on and they're doing great things now. So that makes me feel good. That makes me feel good.
That's good, and I know, and I met you through working for the local detention center, and same thing. That is a great feeling when you see. I get to see young men who I've seen on the inside of detention center, and then they're able to tell me, "Hey, Mr. Rogers, I'm working, I'm doing this. You know, I have
Yes.
a family." So just hearing that testimony all the time, knowing that you had some sort of impact on that person's life, is always definitely enjoyable. And so that's awesome. So, Mr. Gerald, I truly thank you for really just going through this. I believe so many young people will see this, and it will probably even help some young people who are kind of teeter-tottering on, hey, what do I want to do after high school? So I think your story is just so awesome in that, everybody transition isn't just this smooth conveyor belt where you go
No.
straight from high school right into your profession. Mr. Gerald played at a high, wrestled at a high level, won state championships, but even had his gap where he worked. He said, Mr. Gerald said somewhere on the upward side of maybe possibly 20 jobs,
Probably, yeah. And that
but,
may be probably more than that. I've done everything. Furniture,
but
UPS.
2-3 years after leaving high school, was able to make a decision to go back into college. And here he is, a successful attorney. So, Mr. Gerald, we did this the first season. I want to keep it going because I think it's important that our young people hear it over and over again. For our young people, period, not just the student athletes, our young people, period, how important is it to surround yourself with positive people?
It is very important. And I would tell you, you are who you hang with. You are the people that you're around. And I can take that back. And just if I may backtrack a little bit to the period when I became good in wrestling. I remember it was a man, and I never forget his name, Don Blevins. And he was a junior, and he pinned me in like 30 seconds. And so what I did is I went and talked to him and asked him, man, wasn't it, and he said, well, you were cocky. I could tell you were cocky. So I wanted to, show you something. And he pinned me in like 30 seconds. Well, he invited me over his house for the summer. All he did was train. He had wrestling mats in his garage. This was strange to me. His garage was a wrestling room, and he beat me all that summer. But by the end of the summer, I could hang with him a little bit. And so by being around him, I got better. And I think you can apply that to anything in life. Still sharp. So you want to be around people that are going to make you better. And I think that example, but for him beating me like that, it humbled me, but it also, I didn't have so much pride that I didn't want to go talk to him and try to figure out how he got so good. And, questions. And that's same way I became an attorney, not work-wise. I had to put the work in, but just talking to people and them letting me know the blueprint. So you want to be around people. Had I not been around people who've done it, I would not have probably done it because I wouldn't have known. So I think it's very important to surround yourself with people who may not be doing what you're doing now, but maybe people are where you want to be, moving in the direction you want to go in, because it'll certainly raise your level of it'll raise your game up, certainly.
All right, thank you for that. So before we get to the very last question, I'm going to ask you, since you're in-law, just speak to the young person who may have not gotten into any legal trouble yet, but they're finding themselves and they're being warned by family and friends that, hey, maybe you're hanging around with the wrong people. Just tell them how important is it to kind of take that moment to stop today and not begin a life of crime? How important is it to keep a clean record? If you can touch on that real quick.
Yeah, it is very important. And, so many of the people we represent, and you can attest to this working in the detention center, so many people in the center or in trouble period are young. Young people are impulsive. Young people make decisions that they would not make if they were older. And that's why in criminal justice, they say most people age out of crime. The older you get, the less likely you are to engage in any what they call antisocial behavior. However, when you're young, it's a time you need to be extra vigilant because you don't want to make a mistake when you're 16, 17, 18 that's going to affect you when you're 40 and 50. Right. And we see that so much. And so many of the people we do help are young people. And so but you don't want to find yourself in that situation. Sometimes some mistakes you can't come back from, and some will affect you for the rest of your life. So you have to be mindful of that. And that starts with making sure you're surrounding yourself with people who are positive and trying to do positive things. But you certainly because if you're running with a group that's not doing positive things, there's a high likelihood you're going to end up in trouble if they end up in trouble at some point. And it may or may not affect you forever. And you certainly, you don't want to hurt your job prospects, college prospects, and just future prospects in general. So, and what I found is that if you stay busy with your sports, your extracurriculars, band, or what have you, whatever it may be, it'll keep you out of trouble.
Wow, it's so awesome that you said that, because I know most people probably can't see it. You'll see me wear this throughout the season, but it's a shirt that I have that says "Busy Building." And when I go out to speak, it's something that I touch on. It's a shirt that my wife created, but it says "Busy Building." And I believe so often our kids, we hear the sayings, whether if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, or even from the faith-based end, you'll hear, an idle mind is the devil's workshop or whatever like that. I believe so often our young people are not engaged because they don't have something to focus on. So whether it's sports, like you touched on, having something to really occupy their time, or having something to set a goal towards. When you don't have that, you'll tend to kind of fall yourself or find yourself getting pulled into anything. So I think you touched on it. I think it's so important that you find those things to engage in, to really occupy your time. And thus, when it's sports or even other extracurricular activities, it gives you something to kind of shoot for, and it kind of helps to keep you from being pulled into some of the negative things. So I'm glad you kind of touched there. But Mr. Gerald, we thank you for being with us. And I just want to end with our question we always kind of touch on. What is it that inspires you in life?
Being better. I'm still an athlete at heart, even though my body's beat up and my back hurt in the morning. But I still approach every day as a challenge to be better. And I try to with work. Every week I recommit myself. I want to be a better lawyer, better dad, better husband, and just trying to be better in the things I can't control. So that's what keeps me going, keep me inspired. Just being better.
That's
always
good.
Better.
That's good. Well, Mr. Antonio Gerald, I believe there'll be some young people that will see this show and be encouraged, be influenced by just your journey. We thank you for taking the time to be with us on this show. And we just look forward to speaking with you some more. So those watching, I hope you watch the whole show. Just hear Mr. Gerald's journey. Things won't always go straight. High school, college. Mr. Gerald had his gap, worked numerous jobs, he told you, and then still made the decision to go to college. And he's now a successful attorney. So never feel like it's over with. You can always reset, retract, and get back on it. And so we thank Mr. Gerald for being transparent and kind of telling us his story. So thanks again, Mr. Gerald, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man. You're doing a great thing, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, sir. So those watching, you know how we always do. It is great to be just an overachiever in the sport that you're playing, but it's even better to be great in life. And again, I will beat it in the head. Mr. Gerald not only excelled in sports, but he went on to now be an awesome father and husband and an awesome attorney. And I believe it's important that our young people just engage and just work on achieving your very best outside of the game. So I'm just challenging you to focus in on those things and those goals that you have in life, and let's go out and up. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next episode.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.